The world is mourning the loss of a music legend. Tina Turner rose to stardom from humble beginnings and became one of the most popular female singers of all time. She had a string of hits in the 60s and 70s before making a big comeback in the mid-80s with her multi-platinum album, Private Dancer. She was mesmerizing on stage, and her drive and courage made her all the more captivating in her day-to-day life. Here's a glimpse of her incredible career.
I'm Tina.
What makes someone a star?
And we're rolling, take it with me, rolling on real.
Is it incredible stage presence? A powerful voice? Whatever quality it takes to rise to superstardom, Tina Turner exuded them all at every stage of her career.
Left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day.
The Tennessee-born singer rose to fame as the lead singer of the Ike and Tina Turner Revue in the 1960s. She would marry Ike Turner in what would be the start of an abusive, dark period in her life. Years later, she would share her story, a story that empowered women all over the world.
Going public with that story, was that difficult?
Yes, because I had had a lot of violence. Houses burned, cars shot into, like, the lowest that you can think of in terms of violence. And I didn't know what would happen at that point because it had kind of died down and the divorce was final. And my life was kind of getting back on the road. And I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know what kind of mess it would stir. So I had to really take a deep breath and make a decision. I felt somehow getting it out, I guess it was instinct, but I felt that getting it out would be not suppressing it anymore, letting the world really know, because they were constantly talking to me about why Ike and I separated, and I could never tell the truth. Nobody really understood.
After being in the band and enduring abuse, Turner made a huge comeback in the 1980s with hits that would transcend generations. Topping charts and becoming anthems. She moved to Switzerland because she says she was always so well received in Europe.
Basically, Europe has been very supportive of my music.
More than America?
Yes, yes, hugely.
Her cause of death has not been released, but her family says she died after a long illness. Turner's fans mourning her loss at her home in Switzerland and at her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
We love Tina Turner, the greatest legs, the best voice, and all the moves that you can get. She got them all. She's the best.
Simply the best, better than all the rest.
I am simply the best, better than all the rest, better than anyone I've ever met.
Turner defied the limitations society put on aging women, rocking performances in her senior years. She was a black woman at a time when black women were rarely seen on television, much less adored by fans. And the work she leaves behind speaks volumes of her dedication and perseverance. Joining us now to talk more about the Queen of Rock and Roll is music professor Andrew Scott from Humber College. Professor, what kind of musical impact does Tina Turner leave behind, and why was she so iconic?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Well, I mean, it is, undeniably, it is an amazing legacy of music that she has sadly left behind. I think we can talk about probably 3 or 4 main areas, but just quickly, of course, There is the early work that she did with her one-time husband, Ike Turner, in terms of the Ike and Tina Turner Review, which was really a fundamentally important band in the R&B, the Chitlin circuit in the United States, the R&B scene, playing on jukeboxes throughout the United States, and of course really galvanizing a lot of British musicians who were sort of American fetishists, rhythm and blues preservationists, and perhaps most notably the Rolling Stones. And just a little nod to CanCon, I might also point out the wonderful duet that she did with Bryan Adams, It's Only Love. Where not only was that music so impactful in the 1980s, it was really, I think, helped to be disseminated through much music here in Canada and certainly MTV in the United States.
How did she inspire Black people and other people of color?
Certainly, I would imagine that Tina Turner was an inspiration to communities of color, in the sense that she was somebody who was had a great deal of reinvention over the as I mentioned, over many aspects of her career. And additionally, I mean, when MTV started out, there were not a lot of African American artists that were featured. Just in terms of a little bit of history, I remember that there was a Rolling Stone magazine in the maybe early to mid 1980s that did a survey of a lot of the Black artists that were being performed on MTV at that point, because of course MTV came, as I'm sure you know, a couple of years before Much Music in Canada, and there really was not strong representation from African American artists at that point. There were a lot of barriers that broke down. Of course, probably the most famous example of this is Michael Jackson and the amazing success that he had with his music videos from around this time, but most certainly Tina Turner with The Private Dancer, What's Love Got to Do with It. Those amazing songs, and that was a real juggernaut of a record.
From not letting her age hold her back, reinventing herself, to leaving an abusive marriage. Can you talk about all the ways in which Tina Turner was a feminist icon?
And she was really somebody that didn't wait for others, I think, to give her anything. She really went out and sought the kind of success that she ultimately garnered. As I mentioned, she was amazing in the film, as the Acid Queen in The Who's Tommy, and not in a kind of a campy way of like where sometimes you see singers or artists who try and do an acting role and it doesn't really work. I mean, she was really amazing, transformative in that role, and just mesmerizing. So her ability to mix mediums in that respect, I think, was quite empowering and amazing. And so just her ability to kind of move from from R&B to a duo to a solo act to a film actor, to, of course, somebody who really championed and pioneered the medium of music videos, just speaks to her as a real feminist icon, as you point out.
Thanks so much for joining us, Professor.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, thanks for having me.